So what Samy and I are going to talk about today is how we're helping small and medium-sized businesses to implement some of these tools in order to, do you want to start? Yeah, just to kind of, as we've alluded to already, take away some of the repetitive tasks, automate as much as we can, and kind of reallocate that human resource elsewhere. So yeah, I'll just introduce myself quickly. I'm Dominic, co-founder and commercial director of DelegateAI. My background, I have 20 years experience in business development, selling various digital products and services across various sectors. I've had my own property business, which I'm just exiting at the moment. Samy and I worked together about 15 years ago at World Architecture News, which at the time was the first digital-only global news resource for architects. And we stayed great friends ever since, and we always talked about starting a business together. So here we are. Samy, would you like to say something?
Yeah, hi. Yeah, really interesting to see the mix of, I guess, usage. It's good to hear that everyone's kind of dabbled with AI a little bit, but yeah, it's been fascinating. So I've been in the digital marketing and web space for about 14 years now, starting with World Architecture News and then moving quite quickly on to head of digital and senior digital roles for quite large software companies, enterprise software companies, international software companies. So looking after their websites, looking after their paid campaigns, PPC campaigns, SEO, all of that stuff to generate leads. And then naturally, I was exposed to the AI kind of revolution back end of last year and have just been swept away with it ever since. And that's why I kind of got in touch with Dom and thought, how can we start to bring some of this amazing knowledge to small businesses and help them be more efficient, really. So jump into the next.
Brilliant. So sounds like you guys are quite well versed already in the AI landscape, but as Matthew alluded to earlier, we've actually all been using AI in our day-to-day lives for over a decade. I think if anyone's got an iPhone, and if you've asked Siri to set the timer for 90 minutes when you're roasting a chicken on a Sunday afternoon, then of course that is an AI-based virtual assistant. We all use Google Maps and Waze to get around in the car, and when you get that alternative route recommended, again, that's an AI-driven tool. And similarly with the sort of Face ID on your phone, when you're logging into your online banking or whatever it might be, that's a machine learning algorithm, which is comparing that scan of your face with what it has stored. So whilst AI is in the news, front page headlines and all the legacy medias at the moment telling us how AI is going to eat our children tomorrow and we're all going to die, I think in reality, they are in the business of fear, aren't they? And that's how they sell their papers and their advertising. I think in reality, clearly the market should be regulated and we do need governments to step in. But really what we're talking about here is the more mundane day-to-day kind of automation and operational efficiency gains that we want to achieve for clients.
And I guess when we kind of bring it to today and why, so with AI being around for so long, what's the major change that's happened? The major change, you can almost pinpoint it to the date, happened in November, back end of last year, when OpenAI, the guys who make ChatGPT, released their latest version of their model. And basically it went then from being kind of 9 times out of 10 repetitive and getting things wrong to having a huge success rate. And it really changed the game, right? So people were starting to get some great results. So that they were kind of the first in November to really shift. And then obviously Google and Bing mobilized really quickly. Some might say a bit too quickly because Google weren't ready, and they launched their own version of a chatbot, which just wasn't fit for purpose. They've redeemed that now. And then since that, like we've kind of mentioned, there's thousands of specialist AI tool vendors and hundreds more coming into the market every day, each one of them solving a really niche specific problem. And they're leveraging, you might hear these words kind of being thrown around: generative AI, machine learning and automation. Now, machine learning and automation has been around for a long time. What we're talking about now is the explosion of generative AI. So like we said, to create poems, to create art, and referencing these huge language models to be able to create something really quite amazing, to be honest. And the rate of adoption, we've seen it, it's been huge. So in November, when this launched, it was 1 million. By December, it doubled to 2 million. And I think for context, it took Facebook around 2 or 3 years to double their subscriber list. So we're just starting to appreciate the scale of this growth. 100 million by January, and then that hit 500 by Feb. It is, I think, already way over that now. I think we're over 1.2 billion at the moment. But the thing to realize here, and we've seen, especially recently, quite a lot of technological waves come and go. So NFTs, cryptocurrency. This is not a fad, right? It's changed the way we're working. It's fundamentally changed the way technology is being used, and it's about businesses now adopting this in a sustainable and ethical way. But it's fairly revolutionary. So
thank you, Samy. So the question is, what are we doing with this new market, and how are we helping businesses like yours? So I guess there's 3 things that we fundamentally do. One, I guess you could describe us as a business consultancy that specializes in leveraging AI tools. So firstly, what we do on a discovery call with a business owner is to kind of explore the typically 5 to 10 most irritating bottlenecks or frustrations that or repetitive tasks that business owner would love to deal with. And that's typically brings up some of the sort of obvious stuff like customer service, automation, and debt management. But also, what we're finding with all our clients so far is that they're also saying, do you know what, I've always wanted to do X, or I've always wondered how I could go about doing Y. And what we're finding is that in perhaps 80% of the cases, we can solve those problems for them now. So what we then do, we take away those 5 to 10 key pain points of the business, and we then look and discuss internally with our team of data scientists and software developers to understand what is out there. In most cases, we're looking to select existing tools. In some cases, we can do some bespoke coding or software development. So then we also do a lot of the boring stuff, like go through all of the terms and conditions for each tool so that the business owner doesn't have to read those 50 pages of technical text, make sure that everything is clear and safe. And then once we've agreed with the client on which tools we're going to use, we then go through the process of implementation, which is to integrate those tools with your existing IT infrastructure, set you up, and then crucially to train your team both on how to use the new tools, but also to sort of recalibrate your team's way of thinking in terms of using these tools or other tools going forward. So, when you think about all the systems and processes that your team members or you guys use, how can we now start thinking in this kind of automation AI mindset? That's crucial.
Yeah, and I think that's a really crucial point. So embedding a culture, or introducing people to a culture of how to use AI whilst kind of removing the fear and the narrative around it, is where we want to position ourselves. So we're not in the business of reducing workforce or reducing resources as such. We're in the business of understanding what the boring bits are, what the repetitive tasks are, where we can leverage existing AI tools to support that. But then also putting as much effort in saying, right, if we saved X amount of time, how can that be allocated into the business to help scale or grow? Which areas of the business, like Tom said, would you have wanted to reallocate resources? So we spend just as much time in the growth as we do in the efficiency stage. We will not help get rid of humans. It's not what we're there for. So just going to jump into a quick example of what that looks like practically. So we're working with a national football academy, the UK's largest football academy for children. It's got 40 franchises across the UK. And what's been really interesting is, obviously, you guys will know this, is how different each business is, the specific pain points and requirements. So for this one, dealing with the franchisees and getting them to all follow the same tone of voice and help the franchise have a consistent message, and across the UK has surfaced as one of the main pain points. So, and that came up in the AI opportunity assessment, which we run with all of our clients, and understanding then which tools are going to help us do that from a graphic and asset perspective, working with each division. So we're having individual consultancy calls with the marketing department, sales department, the business operations department, and then most importantly, I think the data. So looking at their supporting data infrastructure, and then how we're using data to pick out key points to then create marketing campaigns and all of that good stuff after. But it's been a really interesting project.
Yeah, thanks, Samy. And then another customer we're working with at the moment is a veterinary group with 17 branches across London and the Southeast. So a slightly bigger business, £20 million turnover. During our discovery call, I think there was 8 bottlenecks that this chap was hoping to target, and we a week later came back with a solution for 6 of the 8. So we couldn't do everything for him, but we just were able to do some really cool stuff. So firstly, and the next 2 points are very typical for pretty much every business in every sector, which is the amount of laboriousness around customer service, dealing with those inquiries and complaints. What we're able to do is create an automated process. So if you think about most customer services inquiries might be covering 10 or 12 topics, typically quite similar. So we can implement a tool that will kind of read that inquiry and then put that topic into one of those 10 or 20 buckets and fire off replies automatically. So it will still need some overseeing, but we think we can reduce the amount of human resource there from somewhere between 40 and 60%. So again, that person can then be freed up to work on something else. Similarly with debt management. I remember my mum always telling me during her business years, she spent every Friday on the phone, so 20% of her working week chasing money. Now we can create an automated process. And not only does that mean you can take that person that's chasing money and get them to do something else more useful, it also means that having that capital in the business rather than being chased means that you've got opportunity to redeploy that capital and create new opportunities, invest in other marketing campaigns or product development or whatever it might be. So then the last thing I'll talk about with this particular vet group is one of the bespoke things that this gentleman said. He said, look, over the last 20 years, what I've really wanted to be able to do, but I've never found a way of doing is this. He's got across his 17 branches, he has 25,000 customers, right? And in each of those customers, let's for argument's sake, they say they have one pet. So, and there's clinical notes in those 25,000 records, but he's unable to search across the whole database. You can only search within one patient. And what he was saying is that, if I could go into my database of 25,000 customers, isolate according to conditions. So let's say any clinical note that mentions dental or arthritis or fleas, for example, then there might have been one of his vets 3 years ago might have put in a clinical note, this cat is going to need an extraction of tooth number 6 in a couple of years' time. But of course that gets lost, right? So if he was able to search within the database, pull out all mentions of dental and of arthritis, etc., then he can create a marketing campaign around that. Now he said, look, I've been scratching my brain how to do this. We spoke with our software developer who was able to write a piece of code for it. And then, of course, now with generative AI, we can then rather than enlisting an agency to create that marketing campaign, we can generate that content and then create an automated process to pump out those personalized marketing campaigns. So we said for this guy, we're going to do the top 5 ailments, most typical ailments. And imagine, he's got that database of 25,000 customers. Imagine now being able to isolate specific ailments and target with marketing. I can imagine you guys might be able to, your brains might be whirring as imagining how you could do something similar with your customer databases.
Yeah, and that personalized. So what I guess the resource previously would have been allocated in creating a generic marketing campaign. So maybe 3 or 4 guides a year targeting a specific a pet. With this freeing up the resource like this, we're now able to create personalized breed So at breed level, all of the specific ailments and disease vulnerabilities, and he can create a guide off the bat and then target that audience like that. I'm just going to give you a really quick kind of proof of concept, which this isn't a final product, but it was. Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, I was just going to say when he talked about, one of the things I've always wanted to do is create these breed guides for all the different species of dog, animals, rabbits, etc. He said, well, I've never got around to it because it would take me months and months and months of research to go through each specific breed, look at, research all the typical ailments. And as Samy will show you now, he never got around to doing it because of the weight of work involved. And now we can show you live here today how quickly we can go about that task.
Yeah, and creating this kind of proof of concept is, less than a matter of hours, right? So here's a list of typical dog breeds. I'm sure some of you might have one or two of these.
Are you due to share your screen, Sammy? We can't see that.
How about now?
There we go. That's better. Yeah.
So yeah, standard list of kind of dog breeds, but you can see a lot more specific. So instead of previously just doing, here's some things that dogs have, we can now really delve into it. So if we do by integrating kind of ChatGPT into this spreadsheet, we're starting to, just by pulling down that list, let's say I want to say for a Boston Terrier, if we give it a second, what this is actually doing now is referring to this prompt and pulling in 10 chapters. I've crafted the prompt. The more time you put into the prompt, the better your results are going to be, obviously. But if you spend the time creating a decent prompt, you can then use it again and again and again. So the variable here is the breed of dog. The prompt's consistent. I've asked it to create me 10 chapters. Okay, that's cool. Where it starts to get really cool is now you can have follow-up prompts on that prompt, right? So again, just at a click of a button, a Boston Terrier, I've asked it to list me the chapters, which is done here. I've then asked it to give me, write me 100 words, write me a 100-word introduction, give me 200 words around that, give me 300 words around that. Cool. So now I've got all of the structure of a guide. Obviously, I want to, massage the tone of voice, make sure but this is actually reading off of his website. And then what we can do after that, although it's not loading right now, is write me 6 social media posts around this intro. So then you've got a whole 6-month social media plan, literally at the click of a button. Not just a click of a button. To be fair, you need to spend time crafting the fixed prompts, putting in the variables. But once you've got that, then you can really amplify what you're doing from a marketing perspective. And this is where generative AI really starts to come into it. So when you start to mix that with your data set, segment the audience, personalize, you'll see your conversion rates really exceed. And so I guess then, what does this all mean to him and his bottom line, right, Dom?
Yeah. So with this particular vet group, firstly, I think he was really surprised when we came back to him and we said we can solve these six of the 8 things, which he'd never been able to solve, and he was quite taken aback. So, Sammy, if you want to get rid of that particular page so I can look at the numbers. So what we did with him is to look at the potential return on the investment with us. And so what we did when the element I mentioned about data scraping the database per ailment and then targeting specific patients with marketing campaigns, we said, well, look, if you've got 25,000 patients, let's for argument's sake say that 3% have mentioned dental issues over the last 5 to 15 years. So 3% of 25,000 is 750 potential dental customers. And let's say that we hit those 750 with these personalized marketing campaigns and only 3% respond. That would be 22.5 customers. Typical dental treatment cost for a pet's about 730 quid. So that would be roughly £16,500 per ailment. So we said to him, let's do the top 5, which would be around about £82,500 of new revenue from an existing database of customers. So for customer service automation, we've gone with a very conservative efficiency gain of 10%. I'm actually reading, typically it's more like 40 to 60, but at 10%, we estimated we could reduce the one person's full-time work on that to about £25,000. One of the other things that we were doing for him is to increase, again, hitting that existing database of customers. So 35% of his customers currently have the monthly pet plan. healthcare plan, which is about £15 a month. So we think with personalized marketing campaigns that we'd be able to increase that to 45%, which will generate nearly £300,000 of new recurring revenue. Again, with debt control automation, we've been very conservative at a 10% efficiency gain at 25 grand. We've also added a couple of other things here, the pet breed, and also a bespoke BI reporting dashboard. So in total, we're looking at nearly £500,000 of savings or new revenue across the first 12 months. Now, this is, so for context, is a £20 million turnover business. So £500,000 savings / new revenue. And that represents about 8 times what he would spend with us. So that's an 8x ROI on the expenditure with us. So pretty powerful stuff. And of course, this is just the first 6 things that we will approach and potentially, you know, as new tools come online, and he will see other opportunities in his business for this kind of work.
Cool. I mean,
so yes, that's pretty much what we've got for you today, everybody. Please take down our details if any of you are personally interested in having a discovery call with us. We're just starting out. We founded the business in April. We're working with our first few customers now. We've had an incredibly high success rate in terms of pitch to customer. But what we're doing is offering referrals. So if you have any friends or family or contacts in your network that you think could really benefit from looking at this sort of AI consultancy, then we're paying a £500 referral fee for anyone that ends up working with us and buying our consultancy. So do bear that in mind. And thanks for listening.
Right. Yeah. Well, just one more thing is if you want any resources or anything, if you want to know some further reading, just reach out as well. Happy to share. We've got, well, personally, I'm living and breathing this, so I'm happy to share any of the resources that I'm using as well.
That's great. Thank you very much indeed. And if you didn't quite get that, the contact details down, just let me know and I'll send them over. But all of this will be up on the website in a couple of days, so you'll be able to have a look at it there. So thank you very much indeed. I just, while people are thinking of a difficult question, I suppose I was intrigued by the 6 out of 8, Dominic, and are you coming across the sort of, what shouldn't we even go there with AI? You see what I mean? An awful lot of time could be wasted thinking this is going to solve this, but at the end of the day, it's not, is it? Or do you think ultimately you'll be able to tick off those 8 out of 8 things?
That's a good question, Samy. I can't think of anything to personally.
Yeah, so this came up today on one of the consultancy calls where the client actually had a need, or they came with a requirement, and it was actually the football client, and he wanted to implement an AI that would restrict the brand messaging that the franchisees could do. So in terms of their creative assets, he wanted to create an AI where they would upload and the AI would tell them yay or nay whether you could use this. And actually in that instance, that was more of an educational play rather than creating a new tool and that would restrict something. What would have been better there, or what we suggested to do, and they've actually agreed, is allocate that resource into the education of why you should be following the brand guidelines. Let's give them the assets they need to follow that, and really highlight the importance or the effect that having a disparate brand might have on a franchise campaign. So there are instances where people just want to use AI for everything, and it's not necessarily suitable. That, you know, and yeah, when it comes to like customer marketing, all of the elements which we think we would allocate the saved resource into are much better done off, not offline, but done off AI than using AI.
No, I mean, I'm not a glass half empty sort of person, but I just thought if you can knock out the part, the things that it's not appropriate for, then you can focus on all the things that it is appropriate for. So absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah, great. Okay. Any thoughts? Yeah, I think Phil was there. He's got 2 fingers up, so he's ahead of you, Caroline. You've only got 1.
Oh, you're on mute, Phil.
I always do that. So I'm not quite sure how to ask this because it confuses the heck out of me, but I'm trying to work out where the link is between AI and the final result. For example, we've got a database of all our clients, and it's useful to know what method of payment they generally prefer when they make a payment. So I've added a field to the database and it logs that information. I didn't need AI to do that. If I was to say, well, I want some help producing this field or whatever, can AI jump in and tell me how to do it? Or does it, I mean, the biggest thing is, does it, apart from, I said it was difficult to explain properly. Generally, what I've seen with AI is the end result is text. You ask a question, you get an answer, and it's all in text. So I can't see how this can send out a mail shot or boost or chase customers that are owing money or things like that. And I can't see where the link is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does make sense.
Is there an answer?
Well, the answer is, so it depends on the systems that you're using. So the answer is the implementation that we're running is either through APIs. So a lot of these systems might have an API. So you could have a database and the back end of it will talk to something like MailChimp. And as long as you set up the prompts and the sequences, you could automate it all at a click of a button. If there's not an API available, 9 times out of 10, the software engineer will be able to kind of go in, look at the back-end code and create a link between the two. But most systems at the moment they're open source, so you're able to go in and hook them together, disparate systems, hook them together, and then you can start to connect stuff.
So it needs sort of APIs. So I mean, I don't know how to use APIs. I'm not really a programmer, although I can do basic programming. So could I still get AI to help with these things? If that makes sense, I apologize if it doesn't.
So for the mail shot purpose, or for the inclusion of the field, the field inclusion into the database, probably you need someone a bit more, someone with software experience, so with coding experience potentially. But that doesn't sound like it's something that you'd be doing a lot of times. So once you've set up your data infrastructure once, you're not really going to be messing around with that too much. So that's probably not an AI.
If I want it to automatically chase customers that are behind on payments, I noticed that was an example, and it was a kind of automated. And so you're saying it's through these. Yeah.
So depending on the system, definitely. So that bit of it, definitely automated. So you'd have trigger points. So you had a date field associated with that record. As soon as it hit an overdue date, it would have a trigger. And just like a person would write an email, chase them up, you'd have a system which, as soon as it hits this trigger, if that, then that, and then it will fire an email off on your behalf.
I actually said on one of my the words that you used. I apologize for not knowing what it is. And I forgot what I was trying to say.
It's all
no, that's right. I said, please write me an email that will address this and do this and do this and this. Sorry, I can't send emails.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, maybe I'll switch to Bard. Maybe it'll know how to do it, or maybe I'll do OpenAPT.
Yeah.
And if you switch to a different system, then it does it. And then I figured out you could say, write me the text for use in an email, and it would kind of figure out what you wanted.
Once you have a prompt that works for you, make sure you save it, make sure you tweak it, and then you can build on that. But a lot of it is a little bit of trial and error. If you're using just ChatGPT to create stuff, then it is a bit trial and error. And that's why the prompt creation is so important.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Caroline.
I've had a run-in with 2 bots, which I thought was quite clever. Vodafone, I didn't realise uses bots, and I know it understands the structure of language. That's why it can fool you so well. But I didn't realise it was that, and so I kept asking questions that it couldn't answer, and I got so annoyed that I went my own way. But I recently had another one where it was a bit of software. I downloaded it, and then I downloaded a second one because the first one hadn't come through, and then it charged me twice. So I wanted to cancel the first one or the second one. It couldn't handle that at all, and I got into a loop where I kept asking it, giving it a very complicated explanation of what I wanted. I wanted it to cancel the second one and not the first one, and it kept sending me an email saying your software has been downloaded. And I got to the point where I was saying, I know it's been downloaded, and getting very irate. And in the end, I had to say to it, is there anybody I can talk to? I need to speak to a person here. And eventually it did send the email, but it does concern me that I think many companies are putting out their customer support to these things. And it sounds like a person. You could be forgiven for thinking it was a person, but it's not a person. And I think that's the weak link in the whole thing for me, that there will be people who need to speak to somebody. It doesn't do it all. There's my rant over.
No, that's a good point, Caroline. And actually, you know, some of these chatbots are, you know, a certain level of quality at the moment in terms of their response. You know, I think 2 months from now, 3 months from now, if you were to go back to Vodafone and have, or whoever it was, and have that same conversation, things will move quick enough, and the responses will become much more intelligent. But it's true. So this is very early days in the space, really, for AI to be commercialized and everybody to be using it. And if you remember back to dial-up internet and how slow that was relative to what we have now, I think most of the issues that you're seeing now will be ironed out within this year, probably.
If you don't know if you've got a bot, you can just ask it a stupid question. You know, like you get these things coming through saying, have you had an accident in the last 2 months? And I would say, yes, an elephant landed on my car. Certainly, I can help you with that. Let me pass you through to someone that can deal with that. You know, that you instantly know that this is just a bot.
Yeah.
A real elephant.
Good. Thank you. So any other thoughts or questions, Rob?
I think this was looked at as a very early application for AI, but I'll ask about SEO. Are you reasonably sure that people get good SEO friendly content out if they get their brief right for the exercise?
Not from ChatGPT. So it
Right.
depends on so probably for an SEO content, depending on the size of the client, I'd opt for potentially creating a whole structure like I showed on ChatGPT, then running it through a system maybe like Jasper AI. And there are tools which you can put in to check whether it's been written. I think to Sophie's point earlier, you can check whether it's been written by an AI or not, based on the word frequency and plagiarism checks and all of these. But if you're just going to go in, plonk into ChatGPT, write me an SEO structure for something, and then get it back, you'll probably be penalised for that because there's about 100 other people doing that. But if you take your effort to structure it properly, to frame it how you want, to then put it through other tools to check for plagiarism, all of that, it's definitely still a time-saving exercise. But for something like SEO, you need to be careful with what you're producing and how you're producing.
Do you think then that Google and other search engines, I hear they exist, will get, well, they probably have already got good at detecting AI generated content. Do you think that site create or content creators will be penalized if AI created content is detected, or do you think the search engines will see or work out that it's good quality content, or for that matter not good quality content, and rank it accordingly?
I think the whole industry is completely shifted. I think it in terms of search results pages, the rate of adoption of chatbots, people are moving away from search results pages anyway. So Google or whoever else would be silly to penalize people for machine learning. And I think with their last presentation, they've released their own AI, right? So that they're pushing that quite heavily, integrated within their own search platform. So I think as long as the content is useful, that will always be king. As long as it's useful,
it's what matters after all, isn't it? Is how useful is that content?
How useful is that content? Are you answering your user's problem? Is the bounce rates? Is it just clickbait or not? We've all been on those articles which look great, and then you're into it, and you've had a bad experience with it. So it's more about experience. If that content is good and your users are going to be engaged, Google won't penalize you. But that's my opinion on it.
A final question from me, and this is a commercial one. Google clearly dropped a major major Google Goolie in the early stages. Do you think, or how soon do you think they'll catch up?
I think they've done a great job of redeeming themselves. So I guess those who don't know, so when we're talking about ChatGPT came out, they all scrambled. Google did a presentation and the presenter forgot to even have a phone with her because they're just rushing. They're trying to get this AI thing out, and they lost, I think it was like £100 billion off their market cap overnight. It was a huge disaster. But their last presentation, which I think was a couple of weeks ago, was, as you can expect, a lot better. And they've integrated chat into the search results page, and you can reference and link off into the. So I think Google will become a major player, and probably OpenAI will become a niche product again.
Thank you. Caroline again.
I was very interested in your cheat sheet for GPT. Anything that you can perhaps send to Matthew would be wonderful. I agree, it's how you ask the questions that makes all the difference. So that's at least reassuring that you do need a human to ask the question in the first place. But for how long? For how long?
Well, there are agents out there. So I'm not sure if you've heard about agents or not, but there are AI agents which have started. You give it a task and it will create all of the prompts for you. I don't know. Fundamentally, I think there are so many other tasks which, as we've alluded to earlier, AI can't do, where these agents can do the boring stuff. But yeah, there'll have to be a shift in how we work. But I think if we focus too much on the pitfalls at the moment, and the times that haven't worked, like Dom said, it is constantly evolving. We're in a really early stage with it. 6 months might seem like it's a lot's happened, but this is in tech space, that's like still in the kind of test phase. By next year, probably we'll have ironed out a lot of the annoying bits and think about how to use it really effectively. But we have to be conscious about how to use it ethically as well.
Yeah. So we've got a couple of minutes left. So
I was just going to come in and with Rob, really. So Rob, we're experimenting with a bit of software called Content at Scale, which is a third party, but obviously they're using natural language programs on their back end, and it proclaims to pass all AI testers and detectors, and it respins stuff. It's SEO, but ask me in 6 weeks because we're kind of testing it at the moment. So we'll let you know how it matters. If it does half of what it says it's going to do, it's going to be incredible. But you've always got to take these claims with a pinch of salt. But it's been highly rated to me. And it actually, their AI detection system is something that other people are actually using as a standalone product. So it is quite a powerful system. There are some cheaper versions, Jasper's one of them and what have you. But yeah, I'll let you know how we get on with that one. It's fascinating. One thing I was interested in, gentlemen, so you've got a Google Sheets. Is that the API from ChatGPT that you're using for there? Have you got another tool to kind of?
Yeah, no, that's just really simply the API code into the Sheets and then a Google Sheets extension. About 10 minutes to set up. The thinking around it is obviously how you're going to structure your strategy around that. But
yeah, that was really interesting because that's the bit that I don't understand. I've seen people doing these amazing things. I'm like, how are you doing that? But that's a Chrome extension API on OpenAI and then through or
Google Sheet extension. So
right,
Google
okay.
Sheet extension itself is called. I'm happy to send it to you. It's called GPT for Sheets, and you just go on Google and you just upload it. It takes 5 minutes to set up.
I've played around with some of the Chrome extensions, and some of them are brilliant. Some of them just get in the way and actually seem to half mess up what you're trying to do in the first place. So, with all these things, you've got to be careful and spend time, I guess, as well, rather than just throwing stuff in there.
Yeah, Google Sheet extension. That's yeah. I know what you mean about the Chrome extensions. They can be annoying.
Yeah, cool. Well, thank you.
So it's interesting that spreadsheet manipulation clearly has a place in your workflow, very much at the heart of it.
Yeah, I mean, I start everything with a spreadsheet pretty much. I think when you're able to bring in generative AI into a cell, and then you're able to reference that cell to create more generative AI. That's how you can scale the strategy really quickly. But for bigger solutions, we do something more sophisticated than a spreadsheet. But in terms of just testing out theory and proof of concept, spreadsheets are always great.
Thank you. So we're just about to wind up. Is there any last thoughts, or of Sam, Rob, and Sammy just taking us into a world where we haven't got a clue what they said?
I'm interested to know if anybody is thinking about ways that you could implement some of these tools that we've mentioned today. Has it sort of set off any thoughts for you guys here?
Certainly what I was going to ask finally, Dominic, was, you say you first go in and say identify the blockages. I mean, that in itself is not easy, because sometimes we are the worst at seeing where the problems are. But
yeah,
it's such a helpful tool. I mean, Sam does a lot of coaching. I mean, just getting people to sit down and think, what is wrong at the moment, and how could that, even just doing that in itself as a beginning, whether you go down the AI route or not, is such a valuable exercise.
Definitely, a fresh pair of eyes on your business in all the different departments really can sort of bring up some really key issues that perhaps you haven't noticed, as you say. Yeah, good point.
Then people say they haven't got the time to do that. So then the answer will be, well, free up some time using AI, and you will have time. So
that's right.
Yeah, good. Look, people have got your contact details, so we can make sure that if anyone's thinking of this,
Brilliant.
be in touch with you, because it's happening, as you say. I mean, the numbers were just quite extraordinary, aren't they? And it's really, really important. So anything else before we say goodbye from anyone?
I'd just say, if you've got any questions, large or small, I'm happy to try and just ping us an email. We're happy to give any consultancy.
Yeah, I mean, that's really helpful, and that's certainly how we work within this group, that people are supporting each other and of course referring on where there's someone who's got the specialist knowledge. So thank you very much indeed.
Very interesting. Thanks guys.
Thank you for having us. We really appreciate it.
Not at all. Thanks for all
Nice to meet you all.
And we'll see you all next week and thereafter. Thank you very much.